If you're like most people, you do not like losing money. But is that really true when reality shows us that over 90% of the middle class working community is so willing to give it up freely to financial pitfalls? Today, let's explore how this might be happening to you. The great investor Warren Buffett said that rule number one is never lose money. And rule number two, of course, is do not forget rule number one. How are we falling into these financial pitfalls, and what are they? On the one hand, we all say, well, we hate losing money. We work hard for our money. But then on the other hand, we're so willingly giving it up to all of these things that are willing to take it. I call them financial pitfalls. A recent study done by Clever shows that over 55% of people admit to spending money frivolously. In addition to that, 39%, let's just round it out to 40, that's 4 out of every 10 people admit to not sticking to a budget. So what is really going on? What are these financial pitfalls that we're falling into? Why and how can we avoid them? First off, why worry about financial pitfalls? I mean, why not just live and make our money and go out and spend our money? Well, really what you're doing when you fall for these traps is you're robbing your future self. Tomorrow, you want to do better than today. Tomorrow, you want to have a great financial future. But when you blow your money unknowingly and unwittingly, a lot of times these pitfalls just suck your finances and you end up being in a really bad financial place later on. So first off, you're doing this for yourself. No one's going to pay the price for your financial mistakes more than you are, and probably those closest to you. So the first thing we want to do is recognize these financial pitfalls and just stop falling for them. After sitting down and talking to many of you, and also sitting down and getting the point of view of wealthy people, I came up with what I feel are the top 6. There's many pitfalls, of course, but there are these top 6 that I feel are kind of the most important when it comes to money pitfalls. Number 1 would be credit card use. A recent study done by Experian shows that the average household has just over $6,700 in credit card debt. $6,700 plus in the average household. That's a lot of money to be throwing on a monthly basis with interest out of your pay. So basically what you've done is you've borrowed from your future self, and you're ensuring that you are not going to have as much money in the future because of your credit card use. If you're using credit cards to go out to get caught up to buy something that you don't really need, then that right there is the sign that you shouldn't be using credit cards. You probably aren't a credit card person, and that's okay. Most people aren't. So credit cards are also predatory because they have extremely high interest rates. So basically what's happening is you are spending now and paying for it later. I see people all the time spending money on things that they can't afford, right? And they're not following the rule of 5. If you don't have the money, you do not buy that item. If you're putting pizza on a credit card, how long are you paying for that pizza? If you're going shopping on a credit card, how long are you paying for that shopping spree? So credit cards would definitely be number 1 on the list. Number 2 would be overspending. Statistics are now showing that the average person spends $18,000 a year or more on non-essentials. What does that exactly mean? Of course, we need to pay our rent, we need to have gas in our car, we need to pay our insurances and eat, but we probably don't need that, coffee mug in the shape of a tractor engine. We're buying things that we don't really need just to satisfy an urge, a want, and we are overspending to do it. $18,000 a year. You wouldn't even believe it if I tell you, because you're saying, well, I don't spend that. I'm not one of those persons. But the thing is, we do. Now, how do we end up doing that? And that would be pitfall number 3, and that's called impulse spending. You see, a lot of times you want a tube of toothpaste or a hairbrush or whatever you might need. So you need this item, and you say, hey, I'm going to go to the market and I'm going to buy Q-tips, and you walk into the Walgreens or the Rite Aid or the CVS and you come out with 4 items. That is impulse buying. That's just the point of purchase has got you. Once again, you went in there because you knew you needed toothpaste. Of course, they're having a sale on shampoo and Doritos, so you might leave with some of those things too. Next thing you know, you have 3, 4, 5 items in your basket. Impulse buying could also be you're just standing in line at the supermarket and you start to read a magazine or the Inquirer because you're waiting for them to check out the person in front of you, and next thing you know, you've got a couple of magazines and sticks of gum and candy bars in there. Impulse buys will kill you. That's accounting for a lot of that $18,000 in the overspending pitfall. So impulse buying is for sure a large pitfall. Number 4 on the list, and this is kind of a big one, it's no budget. How is having no budget a financial pitfall? Well, because it contributes to everything else that's going to go wrong later on. You're probably going to spend more than you make. Remember when we talked about that number earlier, that 39% of Americans don't stick to their budget? Well, that means they have a budget, they're just not paying attention to it. So when you don't have a budget that you're sticking to, you're not putting enough money aside for your bills, you're not putting enough money aside for long term, you don't feel like you really have a quality of life, which is why you're going online and just spending frivolously, because that's how you're making up for it. You don't feel good most of the time, you're just working. When you work, you pay yourself first and you set aside all the categories right down to your short-term, long-term bills and your peace of mind account. Then you have money for your long-term. You literally have that peace of mind. You feel better. Not budgeting is a huge financial pitfall, and usually it means you're digging yourself a bigger hole that you can't get out of. So you want to create a budget, and you want to avoid the future you not having a good life and not having money. Remember when I said it's you who is going to be the one to pay for a lousy financial future? Well, that's exactly what's happening when you don't budget. The 5th financial pitfall would be no savings. And this, of course, relates back to budgeting, because if you budget, you have a savings account and you're putting money into your long-term savings or your POM, which is your peace of mind account. And not having savings is kind of a big one. Most people like to save, right? They want to save and they think it's a good idea to save, but they just don't end up taking the actions to save. Life gets in the way. They have all these bills that come up. They have things they want to do. They're living for the moment and they're spending too much time on the overspending and impulse buying. So what's left to save? Nothing, really. Not having savings is a huge financial pitfall. I would like you to imagine, what if you just saved a few dollars out of every check that you have ever had? Maybe it's not going to be a ton of money, but I think anyone in the position of not having money today would say, I wish I saved a little money out of every check. That's how saving starts. It doesn't have to be a big amount. It could be anything. It could be $5 a week, $10 a week, $20 a week. But what happens is when you save and you actually see that money build up somewhere, whether it's in the envelope system at home or it's actually in a savings account, that gets you excited. And that is the catalyst for more savings and to start putting bigger amounts in there. So probably one of the biggest financial pitfalls on this list, next to not budgeting, is not saving, not having a savings account. So you want to start that immediately. You need that money for your future because it's coming. That leads us to the final pitfall on my top 6 list, and that would be personal loans. I'm amazed at how many people do this. I've interviewed people and I've never done this, so I didn't really think about this. You know, this wasn't something I thought about, but when I'm interviewing people and talking about their finances, they're always saying, yeah, and I have this personal loan too. I'm like, on top of your car loan, on top of your student loans, on top of these 3 credit cards? Well, I took a personal loan because it would help me consolidate. So what happens is we sell ourselves a false bill of goods. There are these companies out there, and at first glance, it's non-predatory. They're out to help. They're gonna help me take these 3 or 4 or 5 credit cards I have and get rid of those high interest payments and consolidate it. So it sounds good. It even looks good on paper when you start thinking about it. But what's the reality? The reality is they're gonna charge you a brokerage fee, an acquisition fee. There's a fee to get involved in this program. You have to pay them a certain amount of money. And then even if they're saying they're not charging you interest, they're charging a flat fee per month on most of these programs for you to make that payment. For you to pay the bill, they are now charging you. It's no different than paying interest, but you don't see it like that, and you see it as more organized because now I can just pay one bill. 90% of the time, you are better off cutting up those credit cards, negotiating with those creditors for a lower fee, a reduced fee, stop using the card and make the payments directly to them. You can settle up directly with those companies without having to pay a third party. This is what most people don't understand. You're just creating more debt and confusion. You also have to ask yourself, what kind of a person or company is in the mood to give a loan, in the right mindset to give money to people who are bad with money? These people know you're bad with money. They know you're not making payments. They know you're paying high interest, and whatever deal they offer you is going to look better than what you're doing. So it's completely predatory at the end of the day. So you don't want to fall for that trap, and you want to basically not use or avoid using credit cards. If you do, pay them off. But if you're not a credit card person, then do not sign up for all of these programs that on the outside look like they're going to help you, but really are just predatory. You end up paying more in the long term, and a lot of you don't even end up paying them off, and that goes into bankruptcy or foreclosure. The bottom line here is you want to watch your bottom line. No one else is going to pay attention to your financial future for you. So this is something you have to start doing today, and the first thing I want you to do is avoid these financial pitfalls. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching The Almost Criminal Millionaire, and if you enjoy the topic of money, finances, and how you can have a great financial future, then please like and subscribe for more.